What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we were supposed to be working on my CRX, but then I forgot I had this car scheduled. So today we're going to be working on a different car, and I've been waiting to make a video like this for a little while now, and I know you guys enjoyed the EG how to swap a B swap into that chassis video, and today we're going to be working on an EK. Check it out. So this, I believe, is a 96 or 98. I forgot what Patrick told me, but this is Patrick's car. He is a subscriber, and he wanted to get a little power in the car opposed to the Civic cam that's in it. So I gave him a list to grab everything we're gonna need to put a B into his chassis, and he finally has, I probably say 95% of everything else. I have him here, and he dropped it off this morning so we can get down with the swap today. Now, all the basic stuff like pulling the engine out and all that jazz, I'm not going to talk about it. It's straightforward. But when we do get to the B series portion of the swap, we will talk about everything you're going to need to put a B into one of these cars. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start tearing out the Civic cam from the car, drain all of the fluids, get this stock DX engine out. I believe this is a D16Y7 non-VTEC, and I'm gonna get all of this stuff out so I can clean the engine bay for him. He told me he wanted to clean it later down the road, but I figured when the engine is out, it's much easier to do it that way. So I want to pressure wash this engine bay and have this dry out while we put all the new stuff on the engine over there. Alright guys, so a little while ago we pulled the engine out of the car, right? The Civic cam is sitting over there, and there are a few things that I'm going to be pulling off the Civic cam to use on the B series. We'll talk about it when we get to it. So I did spray down the engine bay a little bit. I didn't really scrub it. I just wanted to get a lot of the dirt and grimes out of there, and it's looking a little bit better, but it could use a good pressure wash. There are a few more things I got to remove out of the engine bay, like the stock motor mounts, the stock Civic cam shift linkage. So before I even plant the B series into the car, I want to do all of the maintenance stuff that is provided. Now, I normally tell people that if you want to change all of the maintenance stuff on the engine or adding performance parts, so on and so forth, when the engine's out of the car, this is the best time to do it. So here's one thing that I noticed. The engine is really clean underneath the valve cover. The valve cover gasket set has been swapped out already because it does have that brand new grommet, the silver grommet on it, and not the old rusty one, as if this engine had never been changed before. I did also notice that the camshaft seals on the inside, the cam seals, they have been swapped out as well, right? And on the other note, timing belt has been swapped with gates, water pump has been swapped out, tensioner is swapped out. You can see how brand new that is right there. The oil pump also have been swapped out. It has fresh RTV on here. The color difference is much brand new, and it doesn't have the OEM stamp on it. So this is an aftermarket replacement pump. Whoever had this engine, like I said, took care of it, and I just called Patrick. He said it's cool, don't use the new kit and just leave this one be. So all I'm going to do right now is I am definitely going to retension it. It is kind of super slacked on the top, so I'm gonna tighten all this up, and then we'll put all the timing cover back on and move on to the next thing. So let's get technical. We're gonna be dropping this engine into the car, and before we do that, I want to install some stuff on the engine beforehand so it's not hard to get around when the engine's in the bay. The first thing I want to do here is the wiring harness. Now typically, if your car has multi-point injection, you want to use the original engine harness that came with the car so everything plugs up like it should. This car is a DX, so it's a non-VTEC model, which will work perfect for the B20 because it is a non-VTEC engine and it shares majority of the same sensors, with the exception of longer or shorter plugs, but that's not a big deal to modify, to extend, or whatever the case may be. So I already have the engine harness pulled off the single cam over there. I already see a few of the stuff that I'm gonna have to modify to get this to work with that. A little key note, if your car is a 96 to 98, it is an OBD2A, and you have to stick with an OBD2A engine harness. Again, 96, 98. If you're putting a non-VTEC motor in your car, you can use the DX harness with the exception of modifications. But if you're putting a VTEC engine into your car, you could still use that engine harness, and then you could wire in the rest of the plugs that you need, like VTEC or VTEC pressure switch and things like that. Or the first simplest route that you can go about putting a VTEC motor into your car as far as harness goes, you can get a 96 to 98 Civic EX, two-door EX wiring harness, and I believe, I could be wrong, but you can use the 99-2000 Civic HX wiring harness as well, and that already comes configured for a VTEC engine. The reason I say that is because the HX is actually an OBD2A engine harness, so it'll actually plug up to the 96 to 98. That's probably a unicorn, to be honest with you, but simple enough, 96 to 98 EX engine harness will work with the DX chassis, which already has all the wirings for the VTEC. The second simplest way to sort out your engine harness for a VTEC engine into your car is to get an aftermarket harness. Like for me, I use CJS Wiring. You pretty much just tell him your engine you're using, the car you're putting it into, and he builds the harness accordingly to be 100% plug and play, where you don't got to modify anything. The 99-2000, same concept, year specific. You can't switch the OBD2A with the OBD2B. If your 99-2000 is an EX, obviously you can use that engine harness. If it's an EM1 SI, you can use that harness. But if it's a base model 99-2000, you can use the base model harness with wire in VTEC and extra sensors, or you can use the EM1 or the EX for those years too. Now the other difference with the EK versus the Integra and Civics, the idle air control valve plug is a 3-wire setup. We're gonna have to switch this over to a 2-wire. I still need to look up the write-up, but I will include it. Dana, please include it. I will put the link in the description below on how to convert your EK 3-wire to a 2-wire idle air control valve, and this plug is gonna go somewhere right there. Idle air control valve plug wired up, clipped in, and we still got to modify it at the ECU. But again, in the description, how to convert a 3-wire idle air control valve to a 2-plug. I forgot about this before getting the engine into the engine bay. I'm going to swap out the stock clutch masters for the S2000 clutch master right here, and converting everything over to stainless. And we got the K-tune slave, as well as the spacer needed for this conversion into your Civic or Integra. So I'm just going to go ahead and knock that out. You be gone. Yes sir. So now the engine needs to go into the engine bay, and yeah, I forgot to take off the motor mounts. Let's do that real quick. All right, take 1000. We got the trans mount out, the rear mount out, and the driver's side. So to put a B series in an EK, you're gonna need specific swap mounts. Now, if you don't want to buy aftermarket motor mounts or don't want to spend a lot of money, you can get the motor mount set up from the 99-2000 Civic Si EM1, because those cars came with docked VTEC B16A2. In this case, we do have aftermarket motor mounts, which is right here in this box. We have the motor mounts right here. Now, the motor mount is going to also depend on your post mount. Now, fortunate for us, we do have the matching post mount. This is the 3-post, which has 2 studs and 1 bolt hole. The driver's side motor mount has just that. We have the driver's side tower mount, which I believe goes right there. We have all the hardware in there. I was a little worried that we didn't have any hardware, but this one right here is, this is the passenger side mount, which goes on the frame rail right there. And the last box right here, we have the rear mount. This goes to the rear T-bracket right there. This sits on the subframe back there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this one and the passenger side installed right now. We have the passenger mount, the rear mount, and the driver's side bracket installed. I don't think there's anything else I need to do here in the engine bay, so that means it is time to get that engine slid underneath and installed in this engine bay. Now, before I settle the engine all the way in position, I am going to get the rear T-bracket in place first, because for me, doing the EF swap B-Series, it's very complicated to get the T-bracket in because of how little of a space we have. This one shouldn't be an issue, but because of force of habit, I'm going to get this installed now. So the T-bracket, you can buy an innovative eBay Half-Sport. It has to be for a B-Series 96 Plus Civic. You can also get the OEM unit from the 99 2000 Civic Si EM1, but in this case, since we are provided this, we're going to use this. Rear T-bracket is on the motor mount, but not in the block yet, because we still have to shimmy the motor in. Now, as far as the transmission side, the write-up says you use the single cam transmission bracket on the B-Series transmission. So the bracket is this motherfucker right here, right? You can also get this from, I believe, the Honda CR-V. Don't quote me on it, but the CR-V uses this bracket, the EK uses this bracket, and the EM1 uses the same bracket. Both holes line up like so. Oh, my freaking finger. So you can see bolt 1, 2, 3, and that's almost there. So I'm gonna go ahead and just shimmy that into place, and then we'll get to that driver's side motor mount. So the last thing you guys saw was me buttoning up all of the motor mounts. They're all tightened in every corner. The engine does not move. So I'm gonna remove that AC bracket because it's unnecessary. I'm not running the torque mount. It's only gonna vibrate the car a lot worse. Now, stiffness really depends on your preference. So you can get soft, medium, hard, even rock solid with the full billet aluminum. Buy with cautious. It's 10 o'clock, so I cleaned everything up, and I can't make too much noise, or at least I don't want to make too much noise. And right now, before I close up and continue tomorrow, I'm gonna do a couple small little things, like run the harness through the firewall over there, plug this one up over there, small odds and ends like ground cable, power cable, battery tray, battery. I'm gonna do all that right now, and tomorrow we'll continue with all of the other bigger items underneath the car, axles and all. On a side note, we have a problem. That is a -3, and that's not a -3. All right guys, next morning here. So last night I buttoned up a lot of things in the engine bay, vacuum lines, wiring harness, ground cables and all that. I just bled out the clutch system, and it is ready to rock and roll, nice and you know, it's not too firm. It has a 6-puck clutch, but again, because it's full hydro, the pedal feels like medium, I would want to say. I am going to take off these brackets right now because, like I said before, these aren't really necessary when you have solid mounts. I'm going to go ahead and install the axles. When you put a B swap into an EK, you pretty much use the axles from the Integra. You could use the 9093 driver side, just got to have the matching intermediate shaft and axle seal. But typically the 94-01 Integra will work perfectly fine. Now we are going to be using the 9401. You can tell because we have the female driver's side end right here that goes to the intermediate shaft. So I'm going to go ahead and get these axles installed so we can do all of the underneath of the car, and then we'll work our way back up to the header and the radiator setup so we can get this thing back on the floor. So now that we have the axles installed, we have to do the shift linkage, because obviously how can you shift the transmission without one, right? So I got to pull out the single cam one that's currently still in the car, and I was provided with a shift linkage, although he doesn't know if it's the correct one. Now the correct shift linkage you need for a B swap EK is an EM1. The Integra will not place the shifter center in the tunnel. So you have to get the EK one because they are length correctly to have the shifter in the correct spot in the tunnel to shift forward and backward without touching the consoles or the plastic. So we're not entirely sure what this linkage is. He wasn't too sure himself, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the one out of the car. I'm going to let me see, stabilizer. I'm going to hook up the stabilizer because I don't have to worry about the B pin right here. I'm going to hook up the stabilizer bar to see where this lands inside the tunnel to know if this is going to work for the setup or not. If it does not work, I believe I have an EM1 shift linkage in my storage unit. So I'm going to go ahead and yank the other one off and test fit that. So the shift linkage looks like it's a dual bend, so it's more towards the back of the console, but for the most part it looks like it's going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the shift linkage back out. This shift linkage is going to work for the setup. And again, if you guys are putting a B series in your car, you need the EM1 shift linkage or the swap shift linkage. I'm not sure if Hasport or Innovative offers an aftermarket shift linkage for B series EKs, but EM1 or aftermarket. So I'm going to be taking this off right here. Pretty simple. You got this 12 mil that goes across, and then you got these two 10s in the bottom, and then the shifter should just pop right out. So we're not going to be using this rubber one as well, so I'm going to remove this. Hybrid racing shifter for B and D series. Part number is right there, and I believe this is the black version. Again, this shifter feels really nice in my buddy Black's car, and wow, look at that, beautiful. I believe this one bolts up differently than the OEM one, so without even looking on Google, it looks like the shifter will sit on top like so, and then you're going to have two holes that already lines up, this one here and the one in the back. You can see these two right there, and then you got to drill another one, a third hole right there, to secure all 3 points. So we're going to do that now. Hybrid does provide all of the hardware, and they are Allen headed with nylon nuts and washers. Top half of the shifter to the stabilizer bar secured. Now we just got to add the shifter rod, which is this right here, with the counterweight on the driver's side. This thing does come with one giant spacer, but I don't know which side it sits on. So let me figure this out real quick. The Hybrid Racing website has a install guide, and based off the guide, the spacer goes on the opposite end of the counterweight, which is this right here. So the shifter is installed right there, and we're not going to be putting the top half on until we get this installed underneath the car first, obviously, because this giant piece is not going to fit through the shift boot. So I'm gonna go ahead and just throw this on real quick, throw a shifter on it, take some photo for the gram, and then we'll get this installed into the car with the Hybrid Racing front bushing and Hybrid Racing rear bushing. It's still in the bag, but you can get this from Hybrid Racing as well too. Part number is right there. This Hybrid Racing BD shifter is the truth. It feels freaking amazing. Wow, crispy. I definitely need to get one of this shifter for myself, although I don't have a car that uses a regular shift linkage. So we have the shift linkage installed with the new Hybrid Racing shifter and the Hybrid Racing billet bushings. The shifter feels freaking amazing. Right now we're going to install the header before the radiator, just so we have all the clearance to maneuver accordingly. The big tube header is very practical for the B20 because it is a 2.0 liter. This is a two-piece design, I believe. I mean, not that I believe, I know so, because a full-size header won't fit in this box, right? So this is a two-piece design header with a, I believe this is a 2.5-inch outlet, and it does come with a new gasket. We do have a new one over there as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this out of the bag. Putting this header together is a little tricky because these runners are all individually floating on its own, and we're gonna have to like pry them apart to fit into the merge collector here. And I believe it goes on like this. Now most people, they tack weld this so it doesn't separate when the bolts fall out, because they typically do. You can Loctite this to keep it from separating. I think that's what I'm gonna do, just so I don't spend time to you know, set up my welding machine to weld these up. So I'm gonna go ahead and just tap this back half of the header as close as possible, and then we'll run the bolt and nut through it. So I found a temporary solution for the exhaust system. Now I told Patrick that typically when you go B series, this is my recommendation, if you go B series, at least go 2 1/4 piping. So I told him to upgrade his exhaust system, whether it's eBay or your local muffler shop. 2 1/4 piping, if not 2.5 for all motor B series. K series 3-inch if possible, but because we don't have an exhaust system on this car, I have to modify the stock one to work for now, because I don't want this car to be open header, and this is my solution. I found a 2.5-inch flange that was attached to a 3-inch pipe, so I had to cut that off. It's not the prettiest, but I had to cut it off so I could utilize the inner diameter. And then I took a transition, it's like a 2 1/4 to a 2-inch, and then I pretty much flared out the edge to flush it up with the flange, and then I welded it here on the outside. And then this end right here, I kind of hit the edge in a little bit, the lip, just so it could fit near snug with the stock piping. This is what's on the car now. I already cut off the length that's exceeding, and you can see it's almost flush. Small little gap that I can fill in with the weld, not a big deal, but this right here just needs to be welded onto the stock exhaust system, and then this should bolt up to the donut flange on the end of the header. Temporary solution, it may work for now. It's gonna sound really quiet, but I recommend to upgrade the exhaust system to really feel the full potential of the B20. Not too shabby, not too shabby, nice and firm. Guys, we are almost done with everything under the hood. We got two things left. We got to do the radiator setup and the intake setup. Now, you could still use the stock half-size radiator that came out of the car originally, but because Patrick is swapping everything out, he is literally swapping everything out. So over here we have a brand new Blox half-core aluminum radiator. I believe this may just be a 2-row, definitely not a 3-row because it's not thick enough for that. And we also have a brand new fan right here as well too. He mentioned to me that this was like a 10-inch fan. I don't think it's a 10-inch fan. This is like, I want to say this is probably an 11-inch fan. Now, typically you'd want to run something like a 12 or 13, especially if you're not running a shroud, because you want to draw, you know, you want to be able to draw in all corners of the core of the radiator, so that way it has like maximum, you know, cooling. But this is a really small radiator fan, although it will still work because the car is all motor. But if you're turboed, run a bigger fan. Otherwise, you could use the stock fan, which I normally would prefer anyways. So I decided to use the stock fan for the setup for a couple of reasons. 1, the big fins. 2, the size. 3, the shroud. 4, the stock fan plug. So this only bolts up 3. This one's kind of off, you can see it right there, but we got this and the 2 on the bottom. This ain't going anywhere. So before I get this put into the car, I'm gonna go ahead and install the top and bottom hose. Now, when you go B series, you have to swap out the hose to B series hoses, because the D series hoses inlets are smaller in diameter. So when you use the single cam one on the B series, you're really going to struggle to try to fit that over the inlets and outlets of the water housing. So B series pretty much, you know, just slips right over, no problems, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and just get this one. This one's on the top, this one's the bottom. If you're all motor, you can use the stock pressure clamps, but if you're boosted or making a ton of power, use worm clamps or T-bolts, because you don't want to go popping this off like somebody I know. Troy. I forgot the person's name who sent me the package full of Password JDM like jumper harnesses. Want to give you a big shout out, man. Thank you for that package, because a lot of that stuff came in clutch for a lot of builds that I've done. For the distributor wiring, I ended up not making my own jumper harness, because in that bundle I had the OBD2 distributor jumper to OBD1, so that's pretty much plug and play. And in that bundle as well, we have the OBD1 O2 sensor extension as well too. So this right here is going to come in clutch for connecting the O2 sensor, which you can see stops about right there, and we need this to connect all the way. It's one of these two right here. I don't remember which one is secondary or primary, but we need it to come all the way over here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just connect that. Big shout out again, thank you very much for that package. Now, I didn't really look on what throttle cable and bracket you're supposed to use, but I know that they have swap brackets on eBay, because I've bought one for I bought that for my all-wheel drive CRX. Even if there was a specific cable and bracket, obviously we don't have it. So me being me, I took the P75 bracket, modified it, welded it, and painted it black. So now we have a bracket for our stock DX cable, which is this long thing right here, and it is tensioned accordingly, and that's ready to rumble. Guys, everything in the engine bay is done. fluids, intake arm, radiator, the whole nine. Now the last thing we need to do before this thing is ready to fire over is to open the door. Remember when I said that we converted the outer air control valve 3-wire to a 2-wire? I already did it on the harness before throwing the engine in the car. Now we have to do the ECU side. Again, the write-up is in the description below, guys. Locate plug A, which I still don't know which one is plug A. Let me see real quick. Plug A is the wider one. So the wider one is this guy right here. You have to move the pin in A14. I don't know if you guys can see it right here. A14, middle row, left to right, blank spot, orange, blue, black. That's A14. That blue black has to move over to A12, which is the empty slot right here. And then that slot becomes empty, A14, and then the orange wire right there in A13, this one, you disconnect that and you just leave it hanging, cut it off, tape it off, whatever. We're not using that anymore. That's pretty much it for the 3-wire, 2-wire conversion for the IAC, and I'm gonna do that now, and then we're gonna install the ECU with the jumper harness. The P75 ECU will work with the B20 non-VTEC engine, just like it does the stock LS B18 engine. So we're going to be using the Block's ECU jumper. This is the OBD2A to OBD1. So I'm going to go ahead and just get this out of the bag. I'm just going to go ahead and plug these 3 into the jumper. 1, 2, and 3. Now don't forget the harness itself actually has this green one you got to plug in as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and do just that. And then we have the OBD1 side, which then goes into the ECU. So let's get this plugged up. Now we are converted to OBD1, and the last thing we need is to put the battery in. I am kind of curious of the distributor location, so I'm probably going to time it. Right now we don't have any coolant because I want to make sure everything is good and dandy before we fill it up. Ain't nothing to it but to get to it. Let's get it. Fuel pump is so quiet in this car. I'm so used to it making a humming noise. I'm gonna make sure fuel pump is working. Oh, it's working. All right. Neutral. Oh, forgot. These cars use a clutch safety. Oh, there's no RPM cluster. Interesting. We do have a check engine light. I feel like the exhaust is like restricting it. Look at the vibration. Now the car is running a stock ECU, so there's potentially check engine lights for stuff that the stock ECU is looking for that we don't have. I'm not entirely sure what it is though. I will check, but guys, car is on. You hear it. You hear it. You definitely hear it. It is on. It is running. Everything that I've shown you guys in this video, I didn't hide anything. I didn't take any shortcuts. The car is running with the B series. I will include the Honda Tech write-up on how to B swap your EK. So be sure to check the link in the description below for like a more thorough explanation. I'm more visual, I guess, but there you guys have it. Now there are some things I'm gonna button up with the car, like putting all the plastic pieces and stuff underneath and all that, throw the wheels back in the car. I'm not gonna go drive it. I want to spend the time right now to button the whole entire car up. You guys can't see it, but it's 4 degrees off. And I'm already maxed out on the distributor. So nothing I can do about that. So the only thing I'm noticing is the car feels congested, and I'm almost certain it's the motor header combo to the stock exhaust system, because when you get past a certain RPM, it just goes. See, it picks up about right there. But the early RPMs, it's congested. So hopefully with the exhaust upgrade, it changes that. The check engine light is for the O2 sensor, and I did notice that when I put the sensor onto the header, the sensor tip was kind of smushed in. So the sensor might be bad, but other than that, there's no other check engine lights. The car feels good. It really does. And yeah, this thing is ready to go home. And there you guys have it, a B20 swap. This video should apply from the 96 Civic all the way to the 2000. Like I said, on each part that we used in today's video, be sure to get the correct one for your chassis, OBD2A versus OBD2B. But that's pretty much my take on how to B-swap your EK, pretty much. And I hope you guys find this video useful. I am going to wrap up the video right here, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. And if you guys find this video helpful on your swap for your EK, be sure to leave this video a thumbs up. And if you guys want to stick around for more shenanigans here on the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.